You know, the one of the things the Republican Party has done as it made the transition from being the Republican Party into being the American Fascist Party has been to gerrymander the various states in which they were in control. Gerrymandering these states to the point where it would be impossible for the Democrats to, A, get political power within that state again, and B, elect Democrats from the various congressional districts. It was a rotten, filthy trick, but it worked. However, as Sophia Tesfaye writes in Salon, a change is coming in 2020. She writes that these gerrymandered maps are being struck down by courts across the country, and the 2018 midterm elections point to massive turnout in the next election. Let's hope, Sophia. She writes that Republicans, clearly running scared, are preparing for the course correction by breaking, bending, and reshaping the rules in an obvious attempt to make a mockery of the democratic process. Well, you and I are familiar with that, aren't we, Truth Seekers? Making a mockery of the democratic process. Democracy, of any way you define it, has to give way when the country has been sliding toward fascism for the past 35 or 40 years and now is hell-bent for leather to get there during the era of Trump, the monster. But Sophia goes on, from Oregon to North Carolina, Republican lawmakers have used every dirty trick they can to seize power and undermine the power of Democrats even after they win elections, the power of Democrats even after they win elections. They've taken Grover Norquist's goal, you remember him, to turn the tone in state capitals toward bitterness and partisanship. They've taken his goal to heart in a major way. Norquist wrote in the National Review a number of years ago, he wrote this, quote, "Our goal is to inflict pain. It is not enough to win. It has to be painful. A painful, devastating defeat, like when the king would take his opponent's head and spike it on a pole for everyone to see." End quote. And except for the shock election of Donald Trump to the presidency, Republicans haven't had the best record of winning of late. Based on their behavior while losing, it seems that the revised Republican goal goes beyond pain to utter destruction, which your humble and obedient servant has been talking about for months. And then Sophia gives an example here. She writes, take, for instance, the extreme and ridiculous proposal by a Texas Republican state lawmaker to abolish the state capital of Austin. This guy apparently was upset that the progressive city, Austin, Texas, approved $150,000 in grants to organizations like Planned Parenthood. And because they were upset, this Republican state representative, his name is Briscoe Cain. Briscoe. Hey, Briscoe. What's up, man? State Representative Republican Briscoe Cain called for direct retaliation against the city of Austin, which, by the way, has about 1 million people living there. He said the Republican-controlled state legislature should, quote, get supreme authority over the mayor and the city council. You do see what's going on. Now, Briscoe's nonsensical proposal came on the same day that Republicans in North Carolina lied to their Democratic colleagues to kill a state budget proposal expanding Medicaid coverage to low-income patients. You see, at least one Democratic lawmaker in North Carolina was distracted by a 9/11 memorial service, and House Republicans in North Carolina rushed to override a veto by Governor Roy Cooper, a Democrat, and thereby denied increased health insurance access to thousands of people in that state. Now, I will digress a little bit from Sophia's piece. This is what she means. This is what I mean. This is what so many people have said, that the American Fascist Party is out to destroy. They're not out to rejigger the democratic process. They're out to destroy it. And in the process, to destroy the lives of honest-to-God people. And even as I sit here this moment, I don't understand what the advantage is to these horrendous thugs in doing that. But I digress. You see, in North Carolina, Republicans had promised the Democrats that they would hold no substantive votes during the 9/11 ceremony. And the Republican Rules chairperson confirmed to a reporter, Laura Leslie, that there would be no vote. But then House Speaker Tim Moore admitted he held the vote to override the governor's veto, while many Democrats were absent simply because the opportunity to break the Democrats' firewall presented itself. So the Democrats went to memorial services. The Republicans, they don't give a damn about dead people on 9/11. Oh my God, that was 18 years ago. Democratic State Representative Deb Butler complained on the House floor as the Republican Speaker of the North Carolina Assembly repeatedly tried to cut off her mic. She said, quote, "This is a travesty of the process, and you know it." She kept having to switch mics and turning them back on. "The trickery that is being evidenced this morning," she said, "is tantamount to a criminal offense." End quote. As their 9/11 thuggery and chicanery makes clear, North Carolina Republicans are some of the worst bad faith actors in the United States. As Sophia points out, the Republican-led state legislature led an unprecedented effort to strip the governor of his powers before he even took office. Remember that? After an election in which the Republicans lost its supermajority in the House and the Senate? And that was a particularly anti-democratic move. Well, Sophia, it was a fascist move. But it's hardly unique in North Carolina. It's a replica of efforts by Republicans in Wisconsin in the aftermath of former Governor Scott Walker's defeat in 2018 when they attempted to remove Governor-elect Tony Evers, a Democrat, his power to approve major actions by the Attorney General and hand that authority instead to Republican lawmakers, right? And in Michigan, Republicans also suddenly wanted to limit the incoming governor, a Democrat's power, after Democrats swept every statewide office in last year's midterms. In Florida, when voters overwhelmingly voted to restore voting rights to 1.5 million former convicted felons, Republican lawmakers circumvented the will of the people with a bill that effectively blocked most of them all over again. And when Republicans didn't change the rules in response to recent Democratic electoral victories, they ran away. And that brought the government to a standstill. For example, Republican senators in Oregon fled the state to prevent Democrats from voting on an expensive cap and trade bill to limit greenhouse gas emissions earlier this year. What is it about Republicans, you all, that they want to kill everybody? And Sophia points out throughout the country, for example, Tennessee, which has one of the lowest voter turnout rates in the country. Republicans have tried to block electoral changes by imposing egregious restrictions on voter registration drives. And David Frum, a Republican consultant, told us years ago that if conservatives can't win at the ballot box, they won't abandon conservatism. They will abandon democracy. And here we are. And these phony-ass calls for civility, they're really calls for servility. Not civility, but servility. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.